Good morning, Airspace. How are we all doing today? Yeah, exciting. So yes, I'm Ariel Levine. I'm a product strategy and ops lead at Warner Music Group, one of the three major record labels.
I'm John Stahl. I'm the lead solutions architect and the mastermind behind much of our Airtable implementation.
Yeah, so I don't know how familiar you are with record labels, but we are essentially responsible for identifying incredible talent in the market, artists, songwriters, and then bringing them into WMG, helping them develop their music and grow their careers. So we're essentially around to help make dreams a reality, making global superstars. And our team within WMG Tech is responsible for all the stuff that's behind the scenes. So whether it's the systems, tools, data that sort of powers WMG's distribution, global licensing, royalty management, fan engagement, or AI projects, we're the team that helps with all of that. So today we're going to take you backstage to give you a glimpse into how we do this, essentially turning operational friction into creative flow. So in the music industry, everything starts with a spark, a lyric scribbled onto a napkin, a melody hummed into a voice memo at 3 a.m. But the reality is, between that creative spark and the global release hitting Spotify or Apple Music, there's a mountain of operational work. Historically, our teams have dedicated immense manual effort to the mission of making artists and songwriters household names. Release planning, for instance, is a high-precision operation. Coordinating a single release requires managing over 40 distinct product details, everything from the lyrics to financial identifiers to clearances and digital assets, across over 10 systems and 15 different teams. Creation is non-linear, and artists will often have inspiration late at night, early in the morning, whenever you can imagine, and they'll often relay that inspiration and the last-minute changes via text message. So it's a lot to keep track of, and our teams do a great job handling the complexity and the changes, but there's a lot of opportunity to streamline. And that's where Airtable really helps us bring data, workflows, and all of this information together in one place. So our mission is simple but ambitious as a team. We want to strip away all the friction so our teams can focus on making artists and songwriters successful. Basically the music, not the tasks associated with tracking that data, metadata, and change requests. Personally, I know when I'm going to a show, I don't want to be bogged down in the details. I just want to enjoy the moment, and that's how music industry employees and artists feel too. Whether it's going to Lizzo or Rufus Du Sol, my favorite artist, you can see me enjoying the show here, or many of the other great talent that we have at Warner Music Group. So now I'm going to hand it over to John to talk about the baseline of truth.
Thanks, Ariel. In case you haven't noticed, we love music puns. So before we could build the AI tools that we're so excited about hearing more of today, we had to fix our foundation, cement our data foundation, if you will. We needed a baseline of truth that everyone could go to and have trust in the verified data there. We sought out to transform Warner Music Group into a record label of the future. We wanted this record group to have a tool we called WMG One, partially built on Airtable, that could unify teams. Switching to Airtable and building this unified system has allowed us to do three very important things. It's allowed us to connect the globe. So with synced tables, now we've improved tracking and visibility from teams in LA and New York, down to Mexico, all the way to Rio de Janeiro, across the pond to London, and all the way back around the world to Hong Kong and Sydney. It's also allowed us to scale efficiency. Airtable has quickly become one of the most used tools at WMG, with many people using it daily. Additionally, managed apps have let us scale workflows, automations, and data tables around the globe effortlessly. And then lastly, it's allowed us to save money. We've consolidated dozens of disparate software licenses into functionality that Airtable now provides, saving hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. The music industry is complex and sometimes mysterious, but we needed to boil it down to core tables, which is where all Airtable builds start. Behind a record label is really the roster of artists and songwriters and the releases, the music they put into the world. The A&R teams at a record label are responsible for signing new artists to the label that will become the stars of tomorrow. They go to live shows, scour social media, and listen to all streaming platforms to identify this talent. We want them to spend more time doing this and not worrying about the nitty-gritty details of contracts, staff assignments, and analytics that we've now built interfaces to handle. After the music is out into the world, it's marketing teams' turn to amplify the record and break the artist. For these teams, we built interfaces so that when a track list, title, or the release date even changes the week the record is supposed to come out, the globe can be in sync and market the record as a unified team, changing their marketing plans accordingly. Once we had laid the foundation, we consolidated existing data for these roster and releases out of spreadsheets, emails, and even WhatsApp messages, and moved it into Airtable. Now I'm going to get a little bit into the technical side of things for all my builders in the audience out there today. We're leveraging both the two-way synced tables of Airtable as well as the enterprise managed app, which allowed us to scale over 70 instances of our managed app to teams around the world. This has allowed us to keep our core fields across all of these teams while also allowing us to add local fields for flexibility and regional and bespoke workflows. Also, this has allowed us to get really granular with permissions. We can adjust the permissions in each app so that only the correct people are seeing the information they need to see at the right time. And lastly, the enterprise managed app has allowed us to ship tables, automations, and interfaces around the world simultaneously so that no one is left out when we launch a new feature. With the core functionality set up, we started building auxiliary workflows off of our roster and release tables. This includes marketing calendars for upcoming events, shows, and releases of an artist that is all in one place. Or potentially a streaming platform that allows teams to manage their pitches to DSPs like Spotify and Apple to ensure that curators are aware of upcoming songs so they get playlisted and played to even more listening ears. Additionally, we even have a ticketing solution that I'll touch on later as it's one of our favorites. While the managed app has really helped us scale these core workflows, the rise of builders on the business side of the house has really allowed to scale everything else. Airtable's intuitive relational system, easy integrations, and AI-first building has allowed us to upskill and create a community of builders on the business side, outside of the tech team. The business has built countless apps, like those to track studio services, purchase order approvals, or digital creative briefs, just to name a few. While we host weekly office hours to advise these builders on their architectural decisions, we find more and more that they first turn to LLMs like Omni, Gemini, and Cursor to help troubleshoot their own issues with Airtable. One of my favorite interfaces that I mentioned earlier is our ticketing solution, where employees can request tickets for themselves and for WMG partners for any WMG artist. It's one thing to watch the streaming numbers come in on New Music Friday on a single that you've been working for months, but it's a whole other experience to watch crowds of thousands singing the words to the track. As a builder, I particularly enjoy this interface since with the data access, I can automatically approve any request I put in, like this unforgettable DJ set from Skrillex and Fred Again I saw in San Francisco last year in front of the Civic Center. Now, I've talked a lot about our core foundation, but we didn't just want a database. We wanted an engine. Now that we had our roster, releases, and auxiliary workflows set, we could use AI to turn operational bottlenecks into competitive advantages. I'm going to show you 3 high-impact use cases where AI is doing the heavy lifting on top of this core foundational data that we've organized into Airtable. I'd like to start with our contract parsing solution, since the life cycle of an artist always starts with a contract when they're signed to the label. So once an A&R team finds the artist, they're going to iron out the details through, as you can imagine, dozens of red lines back and forth, and then submit the contract to business affairs and legal teams. As you can imagine, there's a lot of information in these that need to be disseminated to the correct teams. For instance, finance needs to know about royalty rates, so when revenue comes in from music, the split's correct. Marketing teams need to know about creative support, for instance, how many music videos are part of the deal, if they need to create visual assets, or additionally tour support for live touring artists. Synchronization managers, who are responsible for getting music into TV shows, film, and ads, need to know about any licensing approvals. If an artist maybe doesn't want to appear for one brand or really wants to appear for another. And then brand and partnerships needs to know all about any name and likeness clauses, which is why today we're looking at my totally real contract between an agreement of Warner Music Group and my dance music project, DJ Stalsey. Previously, when an A&R would sign me, they would go through the contract, sifting through legalese to take out little specific pieces of information, then email it around the company so all the teams had what they needed to know. But now, we found our flow with field agents. They're able to upload the contract, and we have dozens and dozens of field agents with very specific prompts to pull out little pieces of information that are then surfaced through these granular permissioned interfaces that we've set up so that all the teams can get the right info they need as soon as the contract is inputted. As you can see, also, some of them are daisy-chained into each other, so some need to load for then further agents to run in this recursive method. Even once the artist contract has been signed, there's still a lot more to do. There are thousands of artists at Warner Music Group, from global superstars to undiscovered bedroom producers, and we couldn't expect any marketer to know every single one. So instead of having the A&R create a vast synopsis to then pass along to the marketing team, we wanted to give them time back to go and sign the next artist. Before, people would have to go to music publications online, like Pigeons and Planes or the Rolling Stone, to look for interviews. They'd have to look at social media and look at the online discourse of an artist to form a complex biography and synopsis. Then teams would have to use internal analytics tools to understand the baseline performance of the artist, looking at over hundreds of data points, like Spotify 30-day change in followers or average TikTok likes on videos. This would take hours. Now with the AI field agents, we've been able to designate them to go to specific data sources to create a fulsome bio of the artist. And then, as you'll see below, we have loaded in all of our different data points for the AI to go over and only pull out the metrics that matter into a short 3-summary paragraph so that folks don't need to spend as much time digging into these details and honestly mind-numbing numbers. Now, I touched a little bit about sync earlier, but I wanted to further clarify that these, what we refer to as sync or synchronization in the music industry, is using licensing copyrighted music to films, TV, and ads. Just think about Super Bowl commercials, TV shows, or films that have had iconic music playing that have really changed the entire trajectory of both the show and the song. While it's a great way to generate revenue, it's also a very effective marketing channel to expose recently signed artists to a wider audience, or even breathe life into classic records. Before, synchronization managers would be responsible to go out, find their own data sources, and create pipelines of all the upcoming opportunities around the world. This obviously is a very laborious task and doesn't allow them to better sift through and decide which opportunities are worth pursuing. With both automations and AI field agents, we're now using these data sources to automatically populate an entire list of opportunities for them with the synopsis of the film or TV show, the distributor, and the producer, so that they can spend more time going over strategy and actually deciding which ones to go after, rather than creating the pipelines themselves. Well, I've talked a lot about how we're using AI to help save time for the business and the end users of Airtable. We've actually also been investing a lot of time in using AI to increase the velocity of building. An aha moment for me was recently when I hooked up Cursor to our Airtable instance via API and MCP connections. As I talked a little bit earlier, we had to consolidate a lot of data and move it into Airtable to get our roster and releases table. But what I didn't mention was that a lot of times we also had to move data out of other software management programs. So we would have to migrate things like attachments, comments, and even relational links into Airtable. Previously, the idea of writing scripts to do all of this at scale would have been mind-numbing and could have taken me something like a week. But with Cursor, we were literally able to do it within minutes. Each time we came across a new roadblock, it was able to read through all of Airtable's documentation, all of the other tools' documentation, and create a solution, as well as a UI, so that I could actually customize it and work exactly how I liked. With all that said, I'm going to give it back to Ariel to talk a little bit more about how we're also using AI on the business side.
Yeah, thanks, John. And those demos were great, weren't they? Thanks for putting those together, John. Yeah, so we've also been exploring the power of Airtable's MCP connection, which Howie just showed off in the previous session. Really amazing technology. Right now, we're actually using them to consolidate data from across our catalog teams. If you're not familiar with catalog, it's comprised of music that we've already released, so it's important to be able to look through it efficiently and effectively in case you want to revitalize something like for an anniversary campaign or a placement in a popular show, somewhat echoing what John just said. So MCP will help us do this really quickly by consolidating the collection faster, taking a first pass, almost acting like a coworker before then handing it back to my team to validate the data. So we're really excited about that moving forward. And then I wanted to shift gears, actually, and just talk about driving adoption. I think it's awesome that we're building really great tools, workflows, but if no one adopts them, they don't actually move the needle on business impact. So I wanted to acknowledge that, in general, change is hard. We see change aversion all the time within companies and even within ourselves. And more than ever, we're seeing a lot of anxiety around AI across industries. But we've been successful in AI transformation by making automation, agents, Airtable, and other AI tools part of our employees' daily lives by doing 4 things consistently. And I'll add that this is something I've personally found effective, whether you're building on a third-party platform like Airtable or on your own proprietary products. So the first thing, practice empathy. You have to meet teams where they are and understand their pain points. Really get in there with them hand in hand and understand how you can make their lives easier. Secondly, you need to demonstrate value. So we need to actually build things that are going to solve problems. Even if we want to create a workflow mostly for leadership transparency or reporting, for example, you want to make sure the people that are going to have to use that tool or workflow every single day get something out of it, and that it's sticky, and that it has some cool features like ticketing snuck in there as well. And then you want to empower champions across your business units as well. So we teach individuals at every level basically how to fish, turning them into advocates, or what I personally like to call citizen developers. And of course, we also provide guardrails, making sure that whoever is building, whether it's tech or the business, they're avoiding technical bloat and keeping our data and the data of our artists and songwriters safe. So back to the topic of AI transformation. The thing that's been most effective for us has been positioning AI as just part of the standardized toolkit, no different than, let's say, using Excel or PowerPoint or Adobe or what have you, and making it clear that employees should use specific tools for specific tasks in a practical, everyday way. Here you can see some training materials that we've used across the teams, for example. Finally, you need to know how you're doing to improve. Metrics matter. We all know this. So we've actually worked with our TAM, Russell, who's somewhere in this crowd, although I can't. Oh, there he is. Shout out to Russell. To build a custom dashboard that looks across all of our interfaces and bases and aggregates data for weekly and sometimes daily review. This helps us see where the adoption is growing or flagging and act accordingly. And we've seen incredible adoption so far. So 40% of the company has been onboarded to Airtable. We've seen a 20% increase since January. I don't know if you all know this, but we really only started building an Airtable last summer, so this has been incredible momentum. And then we expect the majority of the company to be using Airtable in the next year, and we're just getting started. But you don't have to take our word for it. You'll see here some quotes from our users, and our users regularly tell us that Airtable helps them make sure that nothing slips through the cracks, and we've merged fragmented workflows for smoother execution. So Airtable has allowed us to work better together, not only driving more collaboration and unification, but simplicity and immediate savings. We've been able to consolidate tooling and reduce our third-party licenses while driving better efficiency. So summarizing the point of our talk today, if we can take a step back, I think what we've really done is enabled agents to handle the data and admin so our people can carry the soul of the music. I'll close there, but before I let you go, I just wanted to thank everyone at WMG and Airtable for helping us get here. Thank you again, Russell, our TAM at Airtable. We couldn't do it without you. You're incredible. We're so lucky to work with you on a weekly basis. And I also want to thank my solutions architects. You've now met John, but we also have Debbie and Elisa. Taylor used to be on my team, who's sitting on the third row, and Jenny Lamb kicked everything off for us about a couple months ago. So thank you, everyone. It always takes a village, right? We're turning friction into flow. Thank you.
Thank you.